Today I'm going to be talking about The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. The book begins with our main character Bill Mason waking up in a hospital and realising that there's nobody there to attend him. Bill's been temporarily blinded for the past week due to an attack from a Triffid, which is a large plant with a stinger that they farm for oil. Bill works on one of these Triffid plants. Although they took all the precautions, he got some poison in his eyes and he was blinded, so he's had bandages over his face. He thinks it's a bit weird that nobody's come to bring him his breakfast yet, so he starts just listening and finds it really strange that he can't hear any cars and distant screams and moaning and stuff like that. So he decides to take off his bandages himself and see what's up. As he walks through the hospital, he sees that everybody is blind, and it's due to the previous night there was a comet shower. Comet shower? Is that the word? Comet? Comet? Meteor! The previous night there was a meteor shower which had all this amazing green light, beautiful to behold, but everybody that witnessed it is now gone blind. So the book follows Bill and a couple of other sighted people he meets on the road as they adventure through London and the south of England, trying to just stay alive and hopefully begin thinking about ways that they could recover from this crisis. This is a worldwide problem. Like, the whole world has gone blind apart from the very small percentage of people that happen to not look at the meteor shower, and they are now responsible for the welfare of the other 99.5%. Meanwhile, the evil Triffids have broken free and can walk, by the way, and sting people and kill them and then wait for them to decompose so they can eat them. Yay! It sounds really weird to describe a book where plants are attacking humans, but it works, just trust me. This is an A-star quality book. I really loved it. Lots happened, and it was all really interesting. That is as much as I can really say. I had an idea for a novel a couple of months ago that I was really interested in writing, and still am, so don't steal it from me. In that book, the premise would be that electricity has stopped working. Everything electric you use just doesn't function anymore. And I thought, how interesting would it be to see like a society and economy break down and have to go sort of back in time technologically as stores grew less and less and they had to start working off the land and building their own machinery, and I just found it fascinating. And that's pretty much what happens in this book. Electric things still work, but they don't have like a central power thing. They have to run on batteries. They're using fuel in cars that's slowly going to run out. There's a real overshadowing of a loss of resources and how eventually they are going to have to return to this sort of feudal way of living. So it's really cool to see how the individual characters responded to the new way of the world, and how some of them were sort of cynical about how we should be acting, and how some thought that they would be saved by somebody at some point, and a lot of people just gave up altogether. Something that was really prevalent in this book was just sort of commentary on human nature and how we respond to situations. There's this great passage where this professor of sociology stands up in front of this group of people and starts talking about how the way we think about things is going to have to change. He talks about belief systems and how what's right in some centuries would be wrong in another, and we've grown to think of very solid, definite sets of morals and the way we should live in this world. And he's saying that since this time, they're going to have to completely reevaluate everything that they consider right and wrong, because the world is different and they have to respond to that. Different environments set different standards. I point this out to you because the world we knew is gone, finished. The conditions which framed and taught us our standards have gone with it. Our needs are now different and our aims must be different. And then he goes on to use an example that everyone's pillaged loads of shops now because that's the only way they can get food, and a couple of days ago that would have been considered completely wrong, but now it's just something they have to deal with. There's this massive conflict between the survival instinct and resilience of the sighted characters and their innate moral code to be kind and try and save all of the people that are now blind. They know that it's almost completely futile to try and feed all of these blind people, but also that it's inherently cruel to just leave them to die. Like, they know that they have the ability to save a few, but which few and why, and how can they decide that, and is it reprehensible to even try and pick a few? Is picking a few better than having none at all? You can see Bill in the book being in these different situations with people and seeing how their attitudes change between them. Like, some of them are very much like each to their own, and for some of them they feel like it's their duty as sighted people to try and help as many blind people as possible. So there's a lot of sort of discussion over that. Clearly it doesn't come to any proper conclusions because there is no answer to those questions. They often use like the biblical flood of an example of this enormous magnitude of human life-changing on Earth. Although it's never directly said this way, I feel like you could describe it as a rapture of humans. At one point it's suggested that the meteor showers were actually caused by humans experimenting with nuclear weaponry in space, and therefore we kind of caused our own destruction. And that's also true of the Triffids, because they were a result of biological experimentations. I think this confronts the invincibility complex that we have as humans as like the overarching race of the world. And then there are these plants that don't have a brain or seemingly any intelligence, but then over time you realise that they have a method of communicating with each other, and they're incredible at just the instinct of coordination with each other. They can move. How are we a more efficient culture than they are when they manage to work so well and they've grown so large over so few years and are just kind of taking over a little bit? This actually is prophesied in the first couple of chapters. Bill is talking to his co-worker at the Triffid farm, and he's saying how the Triffids are talking a lot more tonight because they're like banging these sticks, and it seems like completely unintelligible communication, but he seems to have a really good understanding of like of Triffids. And he says, if it were a choice for survival between a Triffid and a blind man, I know which I'd put my money on. Bill says, you're assuming equal intelligence. And he says, not at all, I don't need to. I should imagine it's likely to be an altogether different type of intelligence, if only because their needs are so much simpler. So it's strange how the Triffids, who seem to be like this very simple organism, have actually developed a level of cooperation far beyond humans. If you count, Bill Mason, the main character, witnesses 9 deaths directly, and only 3 of them are from Triffids and 6 are at the hands of humans. There's also just a lot of really beautiful passages in this book of prose, so I'm going to leave you with one now. Above it all rose the Houses of Parliament, with the hands of the clock stopped at 3 minutes past 6. It was difficult to believe that all that meant nothing anymore, and that was just a pretentious confection in uncertain stone which could decay in peace. Let it shower its crumbling pinnacles on the terrace as it would, there would be no more indignant members complaining of the risk of their valuable lives. Into those halls, which had in their day set world echoes to good intentions and sad expediences, the roofs could in due course fall. There would be none to stop them and none to care. Alongside, the Thames flowed imperturbably on. It would flow until the day the embankments crumbled and the water spread out and Westminster became once more an island in the marsh. Marvellously clear-fretted in the unsmoking air, the Abbey rose silver-grey. It stood detached by the serenity of age from the ephemeral growths around it. It was solid on a foundation of centuries, destined perhaps for centuries yet to preserve within it the monuments of those whose work was now all destroyed.